y'all, this is Val here with another Epic 7 Hero review. Today we're taking a look at my boy Lots, and let me just say, this guy is awesome. We're going to take a look at my Lots in the team comp first, and then we're going to talk about other builds and how they can be useful in your teams. Now, mine is set up to work with one other unit. Basically, these two guys can take on the world if my Lots was fast enough on his own, but he is not. And that combo is Lots and Says. If you have Lots and Says, you basically have everything you need to wipe the floor with every ML ball comp that comes your way, including comps that use Crimson Armin. I've done it many times. It's fairly easy. I'll explain how that works. So first we're going to talk about stats. If you're going to go the awesome Rock'em Sock'em, or if you prefer the Shake and Bake combo and plus 10 cool points to anyone who just got that reference, then you're going to need a ridiculously fast Lots. Mine is not ridiculously fast, so I run them with 2 speed imprint units just to help me out, which gives me 242 speed. Ideally, you want to get him to 240 all on his own. And then if you need to run, you can run 2 speed print units with that, giving you 256. Or if you're lucky enough to have a Scurry or Vildred, even more. But at this level, what you want to do is equip him with the book. Now, the book, as we all know, is going to give us 20 souls. Mine's is not max level yet. It really doesn't need to be, because when he casts the actual buff, that's going to give that last soul and allow you to burn Sez's S3. So that's how the team works. There really is nothing else to it. You win the speed battle, you win the match. Now people will say, but yes, you mentioned ML ball comps. How do you deal with that? Because a fast ML ball with max skill will get 25% combat readiness in between when Lots buffs and Says moves. Now, I only learned this recently. I wish I could give credit to the Redditor who actually explained this to me, but combat readiness applies past 100% and does matter. So even the fastest ball will not beat you. The reason why is typically most balls have about, I would say, 200 to 220 speed, which puts them roughly anywhere from 97 to about 85, depending on how RNG goes, etc., etc. So if he gets 25% on that, let's just be nice and say they're at 100%. That's going to move them to 125% combat readiness. So when Ox buffs at max level, let's take a look at it here. His skill 2 will give 100% combat readiness. So even a moderately fast Says who starts at maybe 40% combat readiness, and that's saying you don't have 1 point of speed on him, then that means he's going to go to 140% at max level, easily outspeeding the ball. So that is why this works. That's why ball is not a big deal. That's why Hurado is not a big deal when running this comp. You win the speed race, you win the match. Now you can, like I said, run speed imprint units with it just to ensure that you do get turn 1, and I highly recommend it unless you just had amazing speed rolls and you just don't really need it. In that case, put Lots in your team and then proceed to win. Now on his skill, I highly recommend you max this for the reasons that I mentioned. Even at what I have mine here at skill 2, you can see that I will outspeed the balls and it just won't matter. But if you do want that extra little blanket of security, then please absolutely go ahead and max skill this. I plan on doing it myself. Now, the other thing about him, what gear do you want to use? Well, it's a no-brainer because he's all speed, speed, speed. You want to win turn 1 at any cost, so that means that speed set is automatically required, as well as speed boots. That will give you plus 65 speed to him already right off the bat, which you will need. Then I'd recommend to try to go from anywhere from 10 to as much as you can get speed on all his gear pieces minus boots. Once you have all that assembled, you're ready to grab your Says and then proceed to own. I have shown my set stats before, but in order just to make sure that we all can see it, I'll show them again, just in case you miss videos with it in there. But there is my Says stats. If I went too fast, just go ahead and pause the video and take a look. But with these 2 units, it's an instant win. Now, Let's say you don't have says. You're like, Val, that's great, thank you. I don't have says. Is there another Cleave unit that he will work with? Now, that's where it gets a little difficult. Says is great because you don't have to worry about armor break. You don't have to worry about removing immunity. The problem is that no other unit really, as of right now, provides that kind of functionality in a nuke. That's why people always say Lots and Says is the win, because Says just really does not care. He just doesn't. Another thing that helps Says out is that Wind Rider. So when something dies, Wind Rider procs, and then his AoE damage does extra damage based off the amount of levels on your Wind Rider. So that's why it's really hard to replace Says. So you say, okay, Val, that makes sense. So how do I handle it? For instance, there's a very common comp going around right now, at least in Challenger 3-2, the Bologna Vildred comp. So basically, Bologna goes, AoE armor breaks, then Vildred, and then you win. So you might be asking yourself, how does Lots fit into that comp? A lot of people have Bologna, a lot of people have Vildred. So he fits in the comp the following way. So first you're going to need someone to get you turn 1. Because let's say you just don't have the gear for Lots. Then you're looking at the standard combat buffers that I mentioned in the past. Requiem Roar, Rose, S-Rose, Ruzid. I mean, we all know the usual suspects. So you need to get that turn 1. Then you need your Bologna to go AoE armor break. Then you have Lots go and pass the turn to Vildred. Why you want Lots to go last in the chain? Your Vildred just needs to be slow and powerful, because remember, the skill 2 on Lots is going to give your Vildred the turn, so you don't have to worry about it. The key is making sure that no one cuts between Bologna and your Ox Lots, because that can mess you up, especially like a Dizzy or someone like that can really, really hurt. Also, that comp will make ball teams undoable. There is many turns that you're taking before your actual DPS unit goes, so ball teams will still be a huge threat, as well as Hurado, because your first move with Ruzid or whoever your chosen combat buffer is, if they use a buff, is going to trigger the Hurado. If they do not, you're still in trouble from ball. Units that don't use a buff are S-Rose as well as Shuri. So those will get you past the first check and let you survive the Hurado. But because of the multiple turns you'll be taking before Vildred goes, ML ball teams will still cut between you. So with those out of the way, what you have to do is just make sure your Bologna is exceptionally fast. You don't want her to be cut, because what happens if the Diane goes or the Crimson Rose goes in between, then you're really screwed. Diane's going to drop crit reduction, and then Crimson Rose is going to drop, now in addition to carrying her passive with her, but also immunity for that turn, thus stalling you and likely causing you to lose the match. So in a comp like that, where you're going combat readiness buffer, then you're going your AoE armor breaker, then your Lots, and then your attack, you will need to avoid ball, Hurado, if you do not have a unit like Shuri or S-Rose, as well as any other fast teams. This includes Sid teams, because they are specifically designed to be incredibly fast, and they have a high odds of cutting in between your Bologna and Lots. So you say, okay, Val, that makes sense, but I don't have those units. As I've said in many videos before, just make sure that you have the jobs covered. So for instance, make sure you have your combat readiness buffer, your AoE armor breaker, Lots, and then your AoE damage dealer. So you say, okay, Val, that makes sense, but what if I don't have any speed gear and I'd like to use them in more of a bruiser comp? This is actually also ties into how you would use him on arena defense. You would make him extremely fast still, because let's say you don't have the Bologna Vildred combo, or Bologna and Clarissa, or Tenebria Clarissa, or Tenebria Vildred, which are very standard AoE Cleave teams. But you have a bunch of bruisers. Maybe you've got Ken, you've got ML Ken, you've got Zeno, and I know I said Zeno, but Zeno actually is a fairly decent bruiser. You say you have those units. Well, you are in luck. You can actually use them by still building him exceptionally fast. Except for now, you're really not looking to pass the turn. You're looking to disable the enemy team. Now, this is going to require that you do have a stripper that will likely need to go first at high arena levels like Hurado. So your Hurado goes, strips the immunity. At that point, then your Oxlot goes, drops S3, which silences the enemy, and you can proceed to bruiser them on down. This, while not as safe as the other teams, this will still work, assuming that Hurado is able to strip. Keep in mind, he will also push the team back. So a move order for that would be Hurado, Oxlot's S3, and then go ahead and follow up with your bruiser damage dealers. Now, it ties into defense because it can work the same way. You would need a super fast Hurado. The Hurado goes, strips the immunity from the team. Then Oxlots goes and silences them. And then the rest of your team can be either healer based, so you run like a very beefy rule, or you run a very beefy Destina, or a very beefy and fast Angelica. You see where I'm going with that, to keep those guys alive. And then in your last slot, you can put like a Fat Cat, you can put a Kayron. There's a lot of options there. Now, is this team going to be 100%? No, it's not. But with Fat Cat in there, with Hurado, you do have chances to cut people. If their Ruzik goes before you, Hurado has a chance to strip their buffs, push your team forward, and then the AI can go through the process of trying to silence, etc. So while not optimal, this team will work. Well, that's going to do it for this review. If you have any questions or something that I missed, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. As always, thank you all for watching, and all you dudes and dudettes out there, stay frosty.